Welcome back to Garden Talk, brought to you by the Penn State Erie County Extension Master Gardeners. I am your co-host for today, Mike Bailey, but I might correctly say I'm your host for today because our usual co-host, Ellen DePlacido, is on vacation, so we excused her for the day, okay? So how nice of us, right? But today, what we're going to do is we're going to continue on our merry way here, and Ellen can kind of catch up when she comes back. But we want to talk about some gardening styles. And when we talk about gardening styles, what I mean is kind of the gardening layout and how you go about gardening. And Ellen and I have traditionally divided this into kind of 4 different areas. Number 1, a standard garden structure where you actually, dig up or till up a section of your yard or whatever and plant directly into the ground. The second approach that we typically talk about is some mounded areas where you might take that same standard approach but actually add some additional soil and maybe mound it up a little bit at different locations in that tilled and dug up area. Or the raised beds that we're going to be talking about. Yeah, typically I think everybody knows what raised beds are, but we will go over that. And then there's also the container garden, which is very near and dear to Ellen's heart. And so we'll probably catch up with that when she comes back. But let's take a kind of a closer look at these different approaches, okay, and give you some of the pros and cons and why you might do some things like that. First of all, with this standard approach, and like I said, that's where you would actually dig up or till up some of your property, okay, and plant directly into the ground. And that is wonderful if you have good soil, you got a lot of sun, and you have decent drainage. There's minimal cost associated with that. That's certainly one of the pros. But it does require a little bit more space because typically what people do is they arrange that tilled area in such a manner that they actually walk in the garden in between the rows. So, it's really more space to take care of, and it takes a larger area to actually have a garden of a certain productivity measure anyways, if you will. Garden preparation can be a lot of work. It might be a little bit more of an effort to keep out some of the pests, like we've talked about, the deer and the rabbits, etc. And also with these rows, okay, within the garden structure itself, after a heavy rain, etc., it gets kind of muddy and it actually kind of keeps you out of that garden area for a while. So we don't use that a lot here in the city, okay, in the gardens that we kind of work with. Okay, but we do go along, we take that concept one step further, and we'll actually do some what we call the mounded rows. And with a mounded row, what we'll do is we'll take a look at that property, and we'll actually till up an area that's maybe 2 feet wide, okay, and we might go 10, 12, 15, 20 feet out, okay, and then move over another section of 3, 4 feet and do another row like that. And then we would actually add some soil to those tilled areas so that we create mounded areas that are separated by, a strip of grass. And it makes the approach to gardening a little bit easier because you're walking on grass. The grass can be mowed, and after heavy rains, you still have good access to the gardens for weeding and for harvesting, things like that, and for pest control. So that is one of the things that we use a lot at some of our community gardens. We also use the raised beds, and we use the raised beds for a number of reasons. And typically here in the city, what we find that a lot of the vacant lots, okay, typically have had houses on them in the past. And what we need to do is actually see whether you can sink a shovel into the ground. Because a lot of these sites that we go to, have been backfilled with a lot of brick and mortar and gravel and other things, and the growing conditions are not very good. So we have to use a little bit of a different approach to that. And we're going to, end this session pretty quickly because my time is running out, but I want to back up and talk about the standard in the mounded section. A lot of times we will use a variety of different approaches within our gardens to show different people the different ways of doing things. Like there's a garden that we have. One of them has a couple of plots where we're actually able to, till up, plant corn and potatoes, etc. And then there's others that we do the mounded, okay, which is good for the tomatoes and things like that, and the peppers. So we use a variety of different approaches, and you might find that useful also. So, like I said, we're going to follow up on the raised beds in our next session. So, thank you for listening today, and hope that was meaningful. Thank you. Bye-bye.